This episode is brought to you by CBD TV, your one-stop shop for all your CBD needs. Use code FRESHOUT to get 15% off your next order.
So here's what happened. If you want me to go ahead and do the rest of it. Okay, here's what happened then. So then I start writing guys' stories. All right? I write my story, my own personal story, because I'd been on Dateline and everybody, or in American Greed, and everybody's telling me, you got to write your story, you got a great story, you got a great story, and I'm being contacted by these people, you know. So I end up writing my story, and I wrote it and I put it out, and then when I wrote that story, there was a guy named Ephraim Deveroli who came in to prison, the guy from War Dogs. They made the movie War Dogs. So he comes and we start talking, and he says, I understand you wrote a story and this and that. And I said, yeah, you ought to think about writing a story. He had a bunch of money. I go, you could get a ghostwriter. And he asked me to read my book. So I let him read my book, and I said, I can help you write an outline. And he goes, okay. So we start writing the outline. He read my book. He came back. He said, why don't you write my book? I said, okay. So I end up signing an agreement with him, and I write his book. I write a manuscript. Well, he left with the manuscript because he was getting out. Mm-hmm. So he gets out, leaves with the manuscript. He gets out. He starts shopping the manuscript around. And what happens is, and it's a little bit long, but the bottom line is Warner Brothers actually gets a hold of the manuscript. And supposedly, according to Deveroli's lawsuit against them, Warner Brothers used the manuscript to help write the movie War Dogs. Mm-hmm. Now, and they've actually never denied this, but what their argument was that we changed it in such a way that it was no longer your intellectual property.
Mm-hmm. I've heard of that.
Yeah. So, and that is an argument. So they end up having a deal with Deveroli, and of course Deveroli, he cuts me off. Like, he leaves with it, never talks to me again. So, I mean, what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you're dealing with snakes.
Yeah, no loyalty.
So, and I was just like, fuck. So he leaves with it, and he sues them. They end up having a settlement. He thinks I'm getting out in 2030. So that dude's done.
Yeah.
I don't have to cut Matt off any. He's done. So he leaves. Well, of course, then my sentence gets cut by 7 years. And I start writing I'm still writing guys' sentence stories. I write these guys' story. I write a story called, it was Oxy Rush, and I send it out to a bunch of reporters. One of the reporters picks it up. He says, hey, I can get it put in Rolling Stone magazine. I said, okay, great. And the article was supposed to be from him and me. So it's supposed to be from Guy Lawson and Matt Cox. Mm-hmm. A couple weeks before publication, he comes back and he sends me an email, and he says, listen, Rolling Stone, the editor of Rolling Stone magazine doesn't want you to be on the byline. I said, well, that doesn't make sense. Why? And I said, I was actually writing a whole book, a memoir for the kid at this point. Like, I'm writing a memoir. I have to be on it. He's like, no, I'm going to put you in the actual story, though. I'm going to talk about how you sent me all this stuff and you're writing the story. And he's like, that's the best we got. That's it. And I was like, that's bullshit. He's like, no, there's nothing I can do. I'm sorry. They publish it. He sells the film rights. Now, I get a piece of the film rights because I get a piece of what the kid gets. So I get a check, but my name wasn't in Rolling Stone magazine, and the article is 90% exactly what I wrote.
You get no credit for it.
No, none. Well, he does mention me. Hey, this guy, Doug Dodd, and Matt Cox, his prison writing partner, sent me this material, and I loved it, and I turned it into this article, and he's, okay, well, that's really doesn't, I wrote the article. So whatever, they sell it, they option it to New Line Cinema, and they hire a screenwriter, and that's going on. So I then write. I'm just starting to knock out books because I'm also getting money coming in. I'm seeing that this stuff it's got value, and that it's a way to reach out, and it's a way for me to feel like I'm achieving something. The being in prison. What were you in? 7 years?
8 years, 8 months.
8 years. 8 years. The worst part about being in there is obviously that you're not achieving anything.
Trying to create purpose.
Yeah, you have no purpose. It's the worst for me. I think for a lot of guys. So what happens is I'm writing these guys' stories, and I start to realize that if I write your story, I didn't want that happen to me again. So what I did was I started saying, I'll write your story, but you have to attach your life rights to the story. So I get up an agreement, I write up the story, I write up the agreement, you sign it, I sign it, now you're attached to this story. I write the story, I then publish the story on a website that I had outside. While I was incarcerated, I'm publishing them. Then I copyright the whole thing. But I have your life rights tied into it. And of course, what do you care? You've been locked up 5, 10 years. You haven't done anything with your story. Everybody says you got a good story, but you can't write your story, or you're not going to write your story, and you don't really have any avenue or any expectations that you're going to do anything with the story anyway. What does it matter? If Cox gets something, I'll get half. So I've got all these agreements. I had a 19-year sentence that I've done maybe 7 years on. I got about 8, 9 years left. So I got 9 years left. I'm incarcerated. My dad dies. My mom has a stroke. People don't talk to you. People that, your best friends, your buddies on the street, they're not coming around anymore. They're not answering your calls, nothing. So there was a guy that came in by the name of Ron Wilson. Ron Wilson had run a Ponzi scheme. He was about 60 years old. He'd run a Ponzi scheme, and where he'd ripped off like pension, people who had given him their life savings, and churches and things of that nature. And Wilson it was the largest Ponzi scheme in South Carolina history. They did an American Greed on him. So he came in, and he comes in, and everybody's like, oh, you got to talk to Cox, whatever. So I end up talking to the guy a couple of times, and we start hanging out and talking, and he's a gruff old guy. And he eventually tells me that he's actually in the process of cooperating against several people. And so he's actually gets up, and they actually ship him once and bring him back. So everybody knows he's cooperating. So we're walking around talking and everything. And this is the thing, like I'd like to say that he was just this vicious fucker, but there were times he was really not a bad guy. And you get used to hanging around people in there that you just don't like. You know what I'm saying? You take them for what they're worth. This guy's a scumbag in this arena. We don't discuss it. He's a scumbag here, but he's funny here. I'll talk to you about that. So we hang out, and we're talking and everything, and we're talking. And he keeps telling me he's concerned that he had gotten 19 and a half years. He kept telling me he was concerned because he was afraid that the government wasn't going to reduce his sentence. And I was like, well, they'll reduce your sentence. The guys get indicted, they'll reduce it. He's like, nah, they think I've hidden Ponzi scheme money. I'm like, well, you didn't. You said you didn't. You said you gave him like $6 million. He handed over like $6 million. So you handed over the money, that's fine. He goes, yeah, I know, but they think there's more out there and this and that. I'm like, okay, well, don't worry about it. They can't prove that. They have to reduce your sentence. So stop worrying about it. And he'd bring it up every once in a while. And we were walking months later. One day we're walking. We'd walk a couple times a week. So one day we're walking, and he says to me, he brings it up again. And he's like, yeah, they're supposed to bring me back to court. These guys are going to court, this and this. And I went, okay. And he said, yeah, I'm really concerned. I said, why do you keep bringing that up, bro? I mean, I told you that's not possible. And he goes, can I trust you? And I go, probably not. I mean, he knew I had just come back from court. And I went, probably not. And he goes, I actually did hold some money back. They gave some money gave some money to my brother. And I went, okay. And my ex-wife, well, his wife was in the process of divorcing because during the whole thing, she found out he had a mistress. And he goes, my fear is that she's going to go to them and give them the money I gave her. I gave her $150,000 in cash. And I go, well, she's already been questioned and she denied it. So she's not going to do that. He goes, yeah, I think she will. He goes, I think she will. Okay, fine. I said, well, whatever. And I didn't do anything. Like, I actually started thinking to myself, one, I can't believe he just fucking told me that. Because I would tell anybody that would say, like, bro, Cox, how much time you got left? I would say, I got like 10 years, but somebody might fuck up and tell me where there's a body buried, and I'll be out of here next week. And they would, God damn, bro. Man, it's like that. I said, yeah, it's exactly like that. I didn't come here to be friends. I'm not here for the stay. And then I would walk off. I've told him. He just told me where he hid Ponzi scheme money. But I remember thinking, that's not enough. Like, they don't want to give me anything anyway. My prosecutor hates my guts. They're not going to give me anything for that. And I don't even think they'll indict this guy for that. They gave him 19 years already. 19 and a half years. I was like, all right. I didn't do anything until a month or so later. I actually had to order my transcripts because I was still working on my book. So I called my lawyer and said, hey, I need you to order my transcripts. You said you sent them to me. Yeah, okay, I'm going to get to them. She says, everything else okay? I went, what do you mean? She says, anything else happening? I went, no, she goes, I think she was afraid I was going to file a 2255 on her. She said, so you're happy with the result? You're happy with it? I said, no, I'm good. And I went, I said, actually something did happen. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you this. And I tell her, boom, boom, boom. What do you think? And she goes, let me look into it. And I go, okay, hang up the phone. A week later, I get a CO says, Cox, come here. I go, what's up? He goes, you got to go to SIS. And I went, fuck. Now keep in mind, I went to SIS. I'd been there a bunch of times because I would get, if I'm doing if I'm writing a story on you, I would order a freedom of information on you. So I would get your transcripts and I would get a freedom of information. I get all your police report, everything. They would mail them to me. And a lot of times, so your paperwork's coming in to me. And so SIS would get it and they'd go, what, you ordered this guy's transcripts, you ordered this is his motions, does he know you're getting this? And I went, yeah. He goes, and they go, you writing a story on him? And I go, yeah. And they go, okay, so if I call him in here, he's going to be okay with this? I go, call him. And they started saying, look, just have the shit mailed to these guys directly and they'll give it to you. And that would happen. Also, I do that too. But sometimes I wrote the story and the guy left, so I'm still getting stuff in. And they would just give it to me. Eventually they go, all right, I know what you're doing. Here, they give it to me. Or they have the guy come and get it and go hand it to me. The point is that, so when I went in, I thought it was about paperwork. Like I thought maybe the guy's transcripts had shown up. Well, I walk in, there's a CO there with SIS. He goes, come here, sit down. I'm like, oh shit, this isn't it. So he dials the phone and he goes, hold on. He goes, you got to talk to this guy. Pick up the phone, Secret Service agent. Hey, this is Secret Service agent Tom Griffin. I understand that you know a guy named Ron Wilson. I understand he's hidden Ponzi scheme money. And I went, whoa. I said, I know a little something, but I don't think it's much. And I'm not going to tell you anything until I get a letter saying you guys will consider it substantial assistance and reduce my sentence. So call my U.S. attorney. Hang up the phone. I get a letter from them. I get an email from them. Eventually, I sign up on email with the guy. He emails a thing from the government saying, we'll consider it substantial assistance and reduce your sentence. Great. He then talks to me. I said, look, this is what the guy told me. He told me his brother. He told me the wife that he's divorcing. Okay, they call both them in. The wife shows up with like $350,000 in cash and gold and silver, all kinds of shit that she had. The brother shows up with $150,000 in cash. It's like $500,000. Not what he had told me. And so the brother ends up, they both get probation. No, actually they actually had to do like community service. Like one of them got less than a year probation. They're not a felon. The other one got, she had to do probation. She had to do community service. So they grab Wilson though, go back. He gets 6 months added onto his sentence. So he gets 6 months. So I'm thinking I'm not getting anything for that. I'm not going to give me anything for that. He got 6 months. And of course, he writes a letter back to his old cellie saying that when he got moved and got back to South Carolina to be resentenced, that, hey, I got my discovery in. Cox did this. Cox said this. Cox said this. Cox. So that letter is being passed around the compound.
Yeah, but there's a bunch of pedophiles.
And shit. No, nobody's going to do anything. I'm not worried about it. So, as a matter of fact, when I heard about the letter, I had a couple guys come to me and say, hey, bro, this is fucked up. Like, this letter's going around and this. And I'm like, okay. And they said, yeah, he mailed it back to his old cellie. He's got the letter he's passing around. So I went to his old cellie and I said, listen, let me explain something. I said, if you show one more person that fucking letter, and I keep getting these guys fucking coming to me saying this, I said, I'm going to go in, I'm going to talk to the lieutenant, and they're going to ship you to FCC Baghdad. And then nobody's ever going to hear from me again. I said, so quit trying to give me a fucking hard time. that guy was actually in there for a Ponzi scheme too, and he'd cooperated against everybody. So it's like, quit fucking trying to play gangster. I know you cooperated. He's like, well, I'm sorry, Cox, it's just, I was like, whatever, bro. So I leave. So what happens is, once again, the U.S. attorney comes back and he says, they say they're not going to reduce my sentence for it. It's not enough. The guy got 6 months. The other two people aren't even felons. I'm not going to reduce your sentence for that. So I go back to Frank. Frank files paperwork, forces the government. Oh, by the way, when the government comes back, they first say they never promised me they were going to consider. So they said, one, we don't know anything about this. Never promised anybody anything. Never this, never that. So I have to mail the letter to the judge saying, look, this is what they said. Judge then says, what's going on? I want to give this guy a lawyer. Then they give me a lawyer. Then the U.S. attorney comes back and says, okay, we'll reduce your sentence. Frank argues for about 3 months and gets 3 levels knocked off my sentence, which is 5 years. I basically had about 18 months before I walked out the door. And in that time, I kept writing. So I kept writing these guys' stories. And keep in mind, too, all these guys know this. Like, it's all around the compound. You know, I mean, I'm getting a dirty look here or there and a crack here and there, but that's it. Nobody's saying anything. Nobody's saying anything, but 90% of the guys in there cooperated. So if you do the math, 50% sex offenders out of 1,800 guys, out of 2,000 guys, 50% is sex offenders. The other 1,000, 90 to 95% cooperated. You divide that up per unit. It's about 5 guys per unit that did not cooperate, and you can tell who they are because they all went to trial. Those are the only guys that went to trial. So, you know, you're going to give me a little bit of a hard time, but if you cooperated, how hard of a time are you going to give me? Not that much. So no, I didn't get that hard of a time. And guys are coming to me saying, hey, can you write my story? So I'm collecting these guys' stories. You look, I understand. You look absolutely disgusted.
What was the name of this facility?
Coleman.
Oh, so this was Coleman, the low.
Yeah.
Because you were at the medium first.
Yeah.
And then you went to the low. And so some of these guys most of them, like you said, majority, like some of these guys you wrote that probably could have been
half. I think it's like, well, oh no, I wrote about 18, 19 stories for guys in that compound. You know, and books. I wrote about 6 books for guys on the compound, and got a book deal. Published a bunch of Amazon books based on these guys. Same thing. I mean, I've been dealing with, you know, so what ends up happening is I get out of, I was just thinking I can imagine what the comments are just based on your facial expression, how upset you are right now. Look, I understand you're disgusted by it, you're irritated, you're upset. I understand. But I mean, look, I'm just not willing to just not own up to what happened. Mm-hmm. It's just the way, that's just what happened, that's the way it is. And I'm you know, I didn't want to do an extra 10 or 12 years. So I got let out last year, 2019, and I immediately started trying to get these guys' stories turned into films. Try to get them optioned. I've gotten the stories narrated, put them on my YouTube channel, put them on my website. I've got photographs of the guys, contacted producers.
Did any of these guys have anything to do with kids?
No, I've never done any story on a sex offender. Absolutely not. First of all, you know, I mean, they're just weirdos. They're looking at stuff on the computer and
not to say that, you know, a murderer or a gang member or a bank robber is somebody that should be congratulated, but that other stuff, man.
The difference is that, you know, and I'm not judging anyone. What I'm saying is, I can understand, you know, and this is a horrible thing to say. I can understand the mentality of being in a bad spot and robbing a bank. Does it make sense? I can understand being raised in the projects and everybody around you selling drugs. And so what do? You start selling drugs. I mean, that's what you know. I can see that. I can't understand, you know, a guy looking at a child and being turned on. Yeah. It doesn't make sense to me. But but whatever, it's none of my, you know, whatever's happening, whatever, bro. I mean, I'm not
So now you're actually you're out, you're doing the book stuff now, and you're working on some other stuff. You say you're still trying to.
I mean, that's what I've been doing for the past year. I mean, I stay humble, keep my bills low. I've done, I was in the halfway house. I got out of the halfway house. I did a podcast, the guy on concrete. It went viral. It got like 1.5 million hits or something right away. And I got like 1 million hits like in like 2 months. And then I think it's at 1.5, 1.6, something like that. Another one got like a couple million hits. I've done a couple other podcasts. I've been writing stories. I've got, I almost had before COVID, I thought I had a deal with Blumhouse Productions. That fell apart. Mm-hmm. But what Blumhouse liked, by the way, this is what I was going to say, is they liked the fact that I had the guy's life rights connected to the stories. Mm-hmm. Like they were like, this is, I sent them the paperwork. They were like, this is great. You had a great insight knowing how important that this was important. So I was going through the motions with them, and then COVID happened. I had a couple documentaries that were supposed to be done on a couple of the guys that I've written their stories.
So overall, man, what if a viewer's at home trying to take something from us, what would you give as far as advice? Because it's apparent, man, that a lot of people, especially today, it's not the same as far as when I grew up, and a lot of people, as far as just wanting to hurry up and get a quick dollar, or feel that there is no harm done, and where somebody has a gun or you have a pen and a paper, the damage is still, and I own up to everything I've done, just like the next man. I mean, there's still harm done. People wiped out, an old person lose their money. I mean, dude, they're sitting in a home, they're broke. What do they got to do? They're homeless now. So what advice would you give to somebody who thinks that it's okay, and then at the end of the day, well, if you fall down, just tell on 10 people and go home?
Yeah, I think the last question was basically that you get caught, and then you go out, you do a bunch of crime or something, and you get caught, and then you tell on everybody to try and get out of it. That was basically, I think, your point.
I mean, just advice, because a lot of people, especially today, man. I mean, there's no people feel there's no consequence. There's always a way out, and if you're reaping the benefits of something, I mean, it's like you have to realize, and what I try to stress to people when I tell my story is that it wasn't the bank robbery, it was the mentality I have. So if I were to try to tell a young person what would kind of, dissuade them from taking the path I did, what other options, you got to somehow put it in the sense that, man, at the end of the day, you have to own up to all this stuff, and you can't just keep, saying that, hey, I can always get out of it, and throw 10 other people under the bus or whatever the case may be, because you're the one who made that choice to live up and enjoy whatever it is you were doing, and take part in that. So I'm saying, like, advice-wise, how would you explain that? And given the opportunity, would you say that, hey, you know what? At the end of the day, there's certain things you have to own up to.
I mean, I think that I owned up. Look, the difference is owning up to it, in my opinion, owning up to it and saying nothing and not cooperating with the authorities to clear their case and make sure that everyone's brought to justice. I think that's two different things. I know what I did. I absolutely know what I did. I'm more than willing to say this is exactly what I did, and how it affected people. Just like we were talking.
So I'm saying you're saying own it up, but I'm saying as far as advice, but like you're saying brought to justice. How if you got caught and this guy's over here still getting paper, but you maybe did a business with him, but you don't actually. He's not actually the one who got caught, but he's enjoying his life, and it has nothing to do with you. Now, by you telling on him, is that being brought to justice? Because
who's
just a hypothetical person. I'm talking about like a third person. If you were telling somebody else from the street and they got caught, and you're saying, to own up to it and bring somebody to justice, but this person over here, who's a neighbor, maybe for instance, they might have did something, but it's totally unrelated to what you got going. If you tell on them, is that considered being brought to justice? And for your benefit, because it helps you get a downward departure?
Well, I don't see that there's any reason for me not to get a downward departure, since the person's getting in trouble anyway. I think he
didn't get in trouble, though. I'm saying hypothetically, if that person didn't get in trouble, he's enjoying their life, and you go and decide to throw them into your mix. Now they're under investigation even when they weren't even on the radar. Do you feel that's justified?
So you're saying someone is committing a crime.
They're not saying, but a crime. It doesn't matter. It could be everybody. Somebody could be committing a crime, but he has nothing to do with you. You got caught.
Right.
He's living his life. Now, whether he's hustling or not, you might have had an assumption, but you now point the finger at him because maybe at a dinner engagement, he mentioned something, and you were like, "Fuck, I'm in a hot position." So, let me tell on old Ted here. Ted, remember, told me that one time he did this and that. Would you say that that's justified? And would you tell the person on the street to tell on Ted, even though Ted didn't get caught, you did?
I mean, I know the answer that you want, and I know the position I've been in.
You would tell on Ted.
Bro, I got 26 years for filling out some paperwork. I don't give a fuck about Ted. Ted don't give a fuck about me. Then I'm a scumbag. I'm a scumbag. Rat, scumbag, snitch. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I'm not fucking doing all my fucking.
So basically, you're saying that nobody can really be your friend at the end of the day because you would be a piece of shit to that person. You're saying that because Ted was a good dude. You ate at his house. His kids played with your kids. You're saying that you would tell on Ted. So really, at the end of the day, you have no friends. You're only out for yourself. You have no loyalty. You get caught. Yeah, because you're saying Ted, he was living his life. You guys used to go to pool parties together. But you would throw him under the bus because you got caught up and Ted didn't get caught because he wasn't involved in your thing. So you're saying nobody can really be your friend then. Because at the end of the day, it's all about you. You would throw anybody under the bus to save your ass. That's what you're saying, bro. You would do it. It could be your mom. It could be your sister. If you could get out, you said you would throw Ted. He was cool with you. You guys hung out together.
This is a horrible no-win scenario. For
no,
me
because you give honest. If that's your honest answer, you're letting everybody know that you would throw anybody under the bus for save your own ass. That means you can never be a true to anybody outside of yourself. Because if it came down to it, you would throw that motherfucker under the bus.
This is a horrible interview, bro.
But is that what you're saying?
It's going all wrong.
I'm just asking you a question, man, because I try to get that in my mind.
But you're getting really upset about
No,
this.
I'm not getting upset. I'm just asking you an honest question because I'm just saying, I'm asking you for advice to people out here, but you're saying if this Ted is committing a crime.
I would say don't commit a crime.
It doesn't, dude, he's hustled, whatever, but you happen to hear about it. So if you happen to even hear an inclination, you would be like, well, I remember one time Ted told me you would do that.
I don't understand your whole story.
It's a hypothetical situation, but at the end of the day, you're not being. Just be honest with the camera. You said that you would tell.
I am.
You would tell on Ted.
I just said that.
You would tell on Ted.
I mean, I probably would. Yeah, I probably.
So you would tell the people on the street if they get in a situation.
I think most of them are. I think if you look at the statistics, that 80. I think it's 80. I actually had the federal sentencing guidelines statistics.
We already know the feds is a piece of shit. We already know we've been through the system. I'm just saying, moving forward, you would tell people, man, do what you have to do to get out the situation at the end of the day. That's what you would tell them, rather than say, you know what, eat your medicine. You know what I mean? You got caught up. You would just say, man, throw whoever you have to under the bus to get out.
You know that the feds will give you 50 years and not even think twice. You're saying take the 50 years?
I'm saying the bottom line, you don't know this. The guy has nothing to do with your case. You're the one who got caught.
He's a criminal. He's committing crimes.
So you're the police now. You become the police from a criminal, from you hustling, doing what you're doing. I'm just saying, not saying right now because you already went through your time. I'm saying say we're talking to this guy, from him hustling, doing whatever he's doing. This guy, he just happened in passing, but now he's going to try to throw this guy under the bus because his case, which is unrelated to what this guy's lifestyle is, he should go and just start pointing the finger at any and everybody he thinks that he maybe ever seen at a Chinese restaurant that he thought was selling drugs or doing whatever they're doing. Just start telling to get out.
I mean, honestly, I don't know exactly what the situation is. You're telling me what the situation is. I'm telling you what my basic answer is, given that very narrow situation where I don't see that you've got a choice. I think mostly what happens, and that, 80% of drug dealers
I know guys who got life sentence, who got pardons. They did time, but they didn't tell on nobody. I
know guys that got life sentence and that Obama pardoned them.
Yeah, I know some too.
Yeah, and listen, and they didn't either. And they got life sentences and just took it. Matter of fact, I know a guy that got a life sentence, did like 10 years in the pen before Obama cut his sentence, and he had 5 more years to go. And while he was there, the wife left him, which he didn't want to tell on, by the way. That's the person he didn't want to tell on. They said, no, you're going to cooperate against your wife. Didn't tell on her. Went to prison, Wife leaves him, starts sleeping with his best friend. His best friend stops talking to him, also involved in his meth conspiracy. All the people that were involved in his meth conspiracy that he wouldn't tell on, and he was going to get a life sentence. Thank God Obama came and cut his sentence. But the fact is, he didn't cooperate against any of those people, and he got a life sentence. He would have just died in prison. How many people do you know that just died in prison? They didn't cooperate because they thought, these are the people that I love and I care about. But the truth is, when they went to prison, those people
I didn't get a visit in prison. Don't mean that I got to sit around and start getting mad at everybody else for my actions. I'm not saying being in a position you got to do what you feel. But at the end of the day, all I'm saying is that when people who are out there, and this is my advice to all you guys out there. If you're out there and you're doing shit, you're thinking you're living a good life, look, man, don't put yourself in a position where you're going to have your back against the wall like that.
Obviously, listen, there's always different perspectives. I understand your perspective. I understand what you're saying, and I understand coming from your perspective, I see what you're saying, okay? You're saying basically take your lumps. Take it, just, you did the crime, do the time, that whole thing, okay? Based on the prisons that I've been in and the people that I've had to deal with, I had no friends. And being in the prisons that I've been in, from the medium to all the lows, none of those guys had friends. Everybody was ditching them left and right. Everybody was turning on it. Everybody was cutting each other's throats. So do I want to do 26 years when I know everybody's cut my throat that I know, and everybody's cutting each other's throats left and right? And do I want to get 5 years knocked off my sentence for cutting a guy's throat that's already cooperating against multiple people? I mean, the truth is, in that situation, yes. The thing is about that situation, I didn't call my attorney right away. I remember thinking, they're not going to give me anything, and that's not a big deal, and it doesn't really matter. I only got 7 or 8, I got like 9 more years left, 8 more years left, whatever. So I didn't say anything right away. I just happened to mention to it, and it all kind of fell into place. The point is that, you can come up with whatever scenario you want, but I'll tell you, and I'll give you an example. I got locked up in the shoe one time. You end up in the shoe for nothing. Like, I've been locked up in the shoe 3 or 4 times, and I didn't do anything. I was in the shoe one time, in the medium, with another guy that had come from the pen. He'd just done like 5 or 10 years in the pen. He'd come from the pen, and he was in the pen, and he'd come to the medium, and we ended up in the shoe together. So we're sitting there talking. I remember his last name was Griffin. So we're talking, and he's on the phone every other day talking to his son, who's growing up without him. His son's fucking up. His son was a big time, was a wrestler. But he'd been suspended for like the next 2 matches because he got into a fight and this and that. And he's on the phone trying to raise his son from prison. And he's talking to the mother, and they're back and forth, and he starts telling me what's going on with the son and this and that. He's like, yeah. And he's telling me, yeah, he got whatever he got. He got 20 years or something, I forget. But he'd done like 10. And the kid's mother, who's with another guy already, the kid's mother is telling him, I know about this and this and this. I can call the DEA and I can do this and this, and they'll cut your sentence, third party rule 35. So she's telling him this, and he's like, man, she's saying this, and I told her not to do that. I told her not to do that. So he's going on and on, not to do that, not to do that. He's like, well, and I sat there and I said, why? What does it matter? He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, you already told me, like, all the guys in your case that you didn't tell on. They've all been busted. They all told on you when they got busted. They tried to get you into another indictment. You ended up doing your time. You ended up doing this, you ended up that. And he's like, right. I said, you tell me. I said, your son right now, when he's with all of his buddies and he's looking up in the stands and all of his buddies' dads are there, do you think when they say, yeah, there's my dad, there's my mom, there's my dad, do you think that when they say that to him that he looks at him and he goes, yeah, well, my dad's in federal prison, but he's a stand-up guy and he's not here? Or do you think he'd rather just say, yeah, my dad's right there?
And he's a rat?
That he's a rat. My buddy's there.
That's just different. I know the guys I did time with. I know some hitters. To this day, we're still loyal to each other, man. Nobody would ever cross. I know dudes who would go right now and lay down with me. But it's a different growing up.
But
just like you
you're
say,
few, and you're honestly, listen, a lot of the guys that are on your channel, those guys are the exception. They're the exception. Most people are not stand-up guys. Most of them aren't. The statistics alone tell you that.
That's why I said at the end of the day, the advice is don't get yourself involved. If you're thinking that you're going to just skate off and you're dealing with these people, man, just like you said, your best friend told on you. My best friend, man, we've been in so much shit. He never told on me. this dude, man, never told on me, man. Right to this day, if I call him, he'll come out here right now and be out here. Never told, never did anything. We done some crazy shit. But I'm telling them to put it into perspective, for them to listen to your interview at the end of the day, like you said, your best friend told on you. Right. So there's no law, there's no nothing. You have no best friend. There is nobody that really, there's nothing.
Honestly, I don't think I have any friends at all that wouldn't tell on me if something went down.
That's horrible.
Not
bro.
one.
This is the best thing you could take from this interview, you guys. One of the top things is what he just said. And I'm saying you a lot of as business you gave up a lot of good information. I'm just saying, as far as that right there, that's what a lot of these kids need to hear, because that's what's going on. They're constantly getting set up. They're setting themselves up because of society wanting to live out a lifestyle. But like you said, look how quick. It's like you said, all the places you went to, nobody cared. Everybody was out for themselves.
Absolutely. Listen, and as far as you talking about when we were talking about earlier about money and stuff, is that like all the money that I ever got, and I've had several $1 million in the bank. The FBI said I bought and sold over 109 houses in Ybor City. And I've had millions, and I've had great cars, and I've had great houses, and I've done all that. Always riddled with anxiety, always constantly concerned about what's happening and who's doing this and who's doing that. Always worried, always sick to my stomach, always it's just a bad situation. Went to prison, dropped all that stuff, started writing, started doing something that I really enjoyed, as opposed to real estate, which I liked, but I liked it because there was a lot of money involved. And started writing and got out, and now I'm doing okay, nothing like I was. I mean, I'm making my bills, but perfectly happy, feel great, don't lie about anything anymore. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna come here and pretend to be something I'm not, or skate over this, or do a quick, I went to prison, got a little bit of time, then filed a couple 2255s and got my sentence reduced, got 12 years knocked off, and then got out, and then I started doing that. I'm not gonna do that. Didn't think this interview was gonna go this way. I thought we were going to talk about me writing, about my stories, about what I'm doing, about the books, about how I'm just a way more happier person now, that I've completely changed my life, that I have a totally different outlook. The reaction, the whole thing, I knew you weren't going to be happy. I've seen the guys you interview. I know, I know that I don't fit to that mold. I'm not that guy. I'm not even going to pretend to be that guy. I couldn't pretend to be that guy. And, and I knew you weren't going to be happy. Didn't think I was going to get this reaction. I don't think this is the reaction that really does help people on the street. What I think
I didn't know the whole backstory. I mean, it has what you've accomplished, I think, is phenomenal as far as the writing and that aspect of it. And as far as, it's not up for me, because I'm not the Lord Almighty to judge you. But at the same time, I'm just saying, as far as my integrity and how I get down and how the people I mess with, if anybody in my camp, I cannot go to dinner with them. I cannot eat with them. That's just how I am. I don't care. Now, like you said, you didn't expect. I'm just giving you. It's just, this is raw. This is fresh out raw. You know what I mean? But I'm just telling you right now, if he felt I ratted on him, or he couldn't trust me, we would not be friends. If I felt like, my good homeboy at the time, I mean, dude, if they found anything, they would instantly. It changes. You're no longer worth anything to me.
And I get that. I think my fear is that is a kind of a, you did the whole scenario with the soldier thing. I don't know that you relate one to the other. I don't see that that's a good scenario. But my fear is that the whole prison code, that there's a code, or the whole code of the street thing that honestly, really statistically just doesn't hold up. I just think that's the wrong message to tell anybody, or even to focus on.
My message is, we have to learn that you have to have a backbone in life. The bottom line.
I think don't commit crime.
Don't commit crime. But if you're involved in anything, first of all, don't commit the crime. But the second of all, even if you're not committing a crime, you got to have some stand-up. Dude, it's no different. It's just stand-up, period. It's just, you're saying, like you guys, like you said, you don't even look at crime. You guys are real estate guys. You're having fun doing this. But nobody had no stand-up.
Right.
There's no stand-up. I'm saying, dude.
I don't know anybody that stood up.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm saying in life, you have to have that. And there's not enough that instilled. Some of these values whether, when you grow, there's certain things you learn. Like in a neighborhood, like to me, you got a problem, let's go fight. I'm not going to, don't go kill the dude, get beat up. If you get beat up, punched in the face, that's part of growing up.
Right.
I learned that. I got punched in the face a lot of times. I got hit. That was how I learned how to be on the base. But nobody on the base would tell on each other. You didn't grow up kids. You learned a certain little code, there's certain things. But it's like that to me, there's certain core values. But at the end of the day, no, you shouldn't commit crime. You should be taking a trade, doing something that's going to benefit you. But at the end of it, you still got to stand for your people, man. You got to have some type of backbone. And hey, you gave an honest opinion, and I'm just sharing my honest opinion that the kids need to have that moral code. You can't be a pussy in life as far as when it comes to having your friends back. That's just how life is. There's going to be situations, maybe it might not even be that serious where, you're looking at 50 years, but goddamn, man, you got to stand up for your boy. If that's your boy and you're doing something for him, I mean, you're not going to go to bat for him. If I felt he was in harm, I'd run over there and risk my life, man, to make sure that something, I would, that's just how I am. So committing a crime is one thing, but it's also even just having somebody's back. We got so far away from that in life, man. And I don't understand it. It's like, people are like, well, it's just a value point. But hey, man, I get emotional about stuff like that because this is how I grew up a little bit different. I never had no dad. I didn't have no visits in prison. My mom had me when she was 13, 14. But I learned certain things, just through growing up. But, I hope these kids take your advice, man. And at the end of the day, don't commit no crime, man, so they don't put themselves in that position. I mean, no matter how nonviolent or, just passive, whatever they do may seem, it's just, I just hate to see people put themselves in horrible positions and then got to go through and then, deal with all the connection because it's all energy. It's all connected, man. One way or the other, you think you just, and it goes away. It doesn't. There's a lot of connection, man, just in life, So, that's all I want to add to the back of that, man. And like you said, you felt you did what you had to do. Whether it be Ted or whoever the case may be, you felt what you had to do. And the reason I said the soldier scenario was just because it's like, that's part of this. I mean, you sign up for something. And I'm not saying they didn't sign up for crime, but you sign up for a moral code. But, it is what it is. Big Hurt, 916, fresh out, man. Matt Cox.